Hi, did you know EDEXCEL made practice papers? Well, they do, and they're a fantastic resource. They are full sets, papers 1, 2, and 3, and 80 marks on each. So, how many have they actually made? Loads. I mean, loads. There are 144. I don't think anybody would need that many. Anyway, I am making it my mission to do worked solutions for as many as I can. Obviously, the goal is all 144. I do work full time though, so I'm going to be creating them and pushing them out as quickly as I can. So watch the channel because new videos are going to land all the time. Now, to use the papers, I would recommend downloading them, sitting quietly, cracking on with it, and then coming back to do the marking. You've got all the solutions with walkthrough examples. So if anything's gone wrong and you need to see the steps and the methods, it's all going to be there for you. Now, for grade boundaries on the end screen, I've provided some percentages as guide only. No one knows what the grade boundaries will be ever. Anyone telling you are really just trying to give you a guide, and mine is no different. I have gone for the highest percentages we've seen so that we are reducing our risks, but it gives you a goal. It gives you something to head for. And I think that is really, really useful. So once you've got your score, check out the end screen, and that will also give you an idea of your grade. Now, if you're really struggling, if you're finding that you're sitting down to do the papers and they're not going very well, but you like the way that I explain and walk through the questions, then I do have some courses that are available. They are in the description below, so you can just click on that link. If you are somebody that wants to be studying and gaining the higher grades, my grade 6 course is currently free here on the channel. So do go and check that out. The course is designed to help you develop your critical thinking skills. So whilst it's all labeled up as grade 6, because we use a lot of those topics to help us, actually what you're going to really get from that is those topics, but the critical skills that you need. Okay, well, good luck with your studies. This will make a great addition to your revision. If you like what we're doing, please hit that like and subscribe button. That'll hopefully push the video out to more people and more people can benefit from it. Obviously, comments are great. So yeah, just good luck. Revising for a GCSE maths, it's going to be tough. So I wish you well. Okay, so these are the worked solutions for the Foundation Set 1 Paper 2 paper. Question 1, we've got to write down the value of 9. Now, 9 is past the decimal point in the tenths column. So we've got 9 tenths. Question 2, writing the numbers in order of size. Now, a top tip here that can be really helpful. You've got lots of similar digits, which can get confusing, and also different decimal places. So this is 2 decimal, 3 decimals. Over here is 1 decimal. We want them all to be the same. If we do that, it just makes it so much easier to see what's going on. So I'm adding zeros to make them all 3 decimal places. Then I can read it as 740, 744, 704, and so on. So it's easy for me to find the smaller one. That's just reading as 70. So that would be our smallest. So you just look at all your numbers and get them so that they are all in order. Don't include the zeros. All right, they were there just to help you see what was going on. We don't show the times sign in algebra. We've got number work we can do. So we do 3 times 5, which is 15, and we just squash everything else together. Remember, this is a calculator paper. So this question is really just testing that you know your calculator. So you just pop it in, and the calculator tells you 15.9489. Just write down all the digits that you've been given. Okay, question 5. We've got a petrol tank that holds 48 litres when full. So why don't we pop that on straight away, and then we've got it there where we need it. The scale shows information about how much petrol there is in the petrol tank. So that's our needle here telling us that we've got this much petrol in the tank. And we've got to work out the number of litres. Well, if when it's full, it's 48. When it's half full, there'll be half as much. And then you can see here that this needle mark is exactly half again. So the answer is 12. Okay, question 6, we are going to complete the frequency column of our tally table here. So Cassie has 15, and then we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for David. The pictogram shows the numbers of text messages sent by Anna and Cassie. So we've got that information there. Now, we already know that Anna is 24, and we can use that to help us work out what the key would be for this question. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares. So I would divide my 24 by 6, which gives me 4. So I know that the key is 1 square is equal to 4. So I'm going to complete the key, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to complete the pictogram. So I need to make sure there's a total of 12 for this row. Each one is worth 4. So that's 4, 8, 12, and done. I need to do 9 for David. So that's going to be 4, 8. And then I just want to represent one more. So 1 is just going to be a little quarter of that square. So each one of those is worth 1, which is where that total of 4 has come from. Okay, so Michael writes down 4 different factors of 60. He adds the 4 factors together. He gets a number that is greater than 20, but less than 35. And we've got to work out the 4 factors he could have used. So the first thing we want to do is get the factors of 60. So I like using a bug, and I like doing it in pairs. So I start with 1, and I need 60. 1 times 60 makes 60. 2 times 30. 3 times 20. And you just keep going until you've worked yourself all the way around. You've got your calculator, remember, it's a calculator paper, so you can test. Is it in the 4 times table? Well, 60 divided by 4, you test it in your calculator. Yes, it is. It's 15. We know it's in the 5s. We know it's in the 6. Is it in the 7s? You can test that. No. 8, no. 9, no. And then you get to 10, which you've already got listed. And when you get to that one that repeats, you know you found them all. Now, I just need to select 4. And there are a lot of combinations. So the combination that I'm about to do is definitely not the only one. But I am thinking it's got to be greater than 20. So I'm going to use the 20 so that I know when I add, say, 1 to it, I've gone over. But I've got to keep it under 35. So I'm just going to make sure that the other numbers are really low as well. When I add those together, I'll get 26, which lies between 20 and 35, exactly what I want. So those would be my numbers that I've chosen to answer the question. But as I say, there's lots of combinations on that one. Okay, so when you get a question like this, and these are common, aren't they? The best way is not to spend ages thinking about this, but almost thinking about the problem and what you would do if it was given to you. So this is somebody's working out. You can compare it to your working out. So the first thing that we would do is we would take off the 1 to get 8x equaling 4, which he got as well. So he hasn't done anything wrong at that stage. We would then have to divide through by 8. So we'll compare that, and we can see he's got it the wrong way round. So now we can see his mistake clearly. We can write down what he did. And that will be good enough to get the mark. Okay, when we first look at this question, it looks really scary. There is so much information, so many numbers. It can feel a little daunting. However, once we read through, get the context of the story, it isn't actually too bad. Once you've read through this, you realize that this information here is about how much money he puts in his account, and this information here is about what comes out of his account. So the first thing we're going to do to solve this is work out the amount he has in his account. So we just have to add everything together. And that's the total in his account. We're then going to add all of these to get his total spend. And this was 450.32. So to work out how much money there is left in his bank account after he has done all that spending, we just need to do 457, take away 450.32 to get our answer of £6.68. So when you look at the amount of maths I've just done compared to the amount of words that are there, it's not too bad, is it? The only thing that I would say is I've not literally shown £42.40 plus £21.5. So that's a good idea to show what you're adding. But my top tip is add it twice. Do it once, get your total, then do it again. There is so much adding here, you could easily tap something wrong into your calculator, which would be awful. So when you've got something like that, I would definitely add it once, get your total, add it again, make sure you get the same answer before you finish off. Okay, when you subtract a number from 10, the answer will always be less than 10. Is he correct? Can't just write yes or no. I have to give that reason. He is incorrect. Oh, that's better. No. If you subtract a negative number, it will be bigger. So here's the example to show you. 10, subtract, -2. Those two negatives are going to create a positive, which equals 12. Lucy says, when you halve a whole number that ends in 14, you always get a number that ends in 2. Write down an example to show that Lucy is wrong. So we already know this is not a correct statement. So again, remember you've got your calculator. I'm going to do the first number that ends with a 4, which is 14, well, the first 2-digit number. Divide that by 2, and I've got 7. So I've proved it straight away. Okay, so our first one is a cone. Got your ice cream cone. And our second one is a cylinder. Right, question 12. George and Harry work in a factory, and we've been given a rule that shows how their pay is calculated. Now, George worked 30 hours, and he was paid a bonus of 20. So we've got our 30 hours, and our hours is here in our formula. And then we've got our £20 bonus. So what we're going to write is 8 times hours first, and then add in your bonus. Pop that into your calculator, and you've got £260. Now, Harry worked for 34 hours, and his total pay was 300. So this time, the total pay, 300, has to be written at the beginning. You've then got your 8 times hours worked, which is 34. And then we've got the bonus, which is what we don't know. Now, 8 times 34 is 272. So 272 plus the bonus will equal 300. So all we need to do is 300, take off the 272, and you've got your 28. And use your calculator. That's what it's there for. You don't have to do any of this by hand. Okay, so we are being told that 20% of the eggs are small, 24% are large, and we need to work out the percentage that are medium. Well, the small and the large add to give 44%. We obviously want 100%. So 100, take away the 44 is 56. So there must be 56% medium. Now, when you're expressing a percentage as a fraction, you're really remembering that fact that percent means out of 100. So you've got 24 out of 100. You have your calculator. So when you have to put it in simplest form, all you really need to do is put that into your calculator, hit the equals, and it's going to cancel it for you. Tina collected 75 eggs in May. Remember, percent means out of 100. Of means times. So that is the maths in the sentence. You put that in your calculator and you get 15. It's not the only way, but it's a good foolproof, works every time. Even if they gave you a decimal percentage, it would work. So it's quite nice. Okay, question 14 is a conversion graph. So this graph links the cost to the area using this line here. We're being asked to use the graph to find the cost of cleaning a carpet that is 30 meters squared. So all we're going to do is find where 30 is, go up, hit the line, and then we come across to work out the cost. Okay, and I can see that this is coming in halfway between 100 and 150, or I can take the time to consider all these individual sections, and the answer is 125 for A. Now, they are going to allow a slight range in the mark scheme. So if you'd given an answer between 123 and 127, you would have still got that mark. Now, I'm going to leave the graph on the screen. B says use the graph to find the area of a carpet that cost £150. So we do the same thing. We're going to go to the cost, get 150, come across and down to see what that will actually be. Okay, and now I'm just going to count it in. So we've got 10 squares between the 30 and the 40. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coming out at 6 pretty much. So 36. And again, you have that range of 35 to 36. So you need to be pretty accurate there. Part C, a rectangular carpet has a length of 8.6 and a width of 5. And we've got to work out the cost of cleaning the carpet. Well, the first thing that we're going to need to do is work out the area. So for part C, we would be doing 8.6 times by 5 so that we can get the total area, which is 43. And then as we have been, we will use the graph by going up at 43, hitting and coming across to get that cost. Okay, now that one is not slap bang, so I'm going to have to think about my actual scale here. Now we've got 50 between these two numbers, and we've got 10 squares. So I know that 10 squares is equal to 50. 1 square, well, if I divide through by 10 and divide through by 10, I can work out that 1 square is 5. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. 150 plus 30 is 180. So for C, my answer is £180. And again, they were allowing a range. Again, quite tight. So you're still needing to have a lot of accuracy with your drawing there. Use a ruler, it will definitely help. Okay, we've got a travel graph for question 15. Part A, what time did Suha leave home? Well, we can see that we are 2 here, 3 here. This is halfway along, so it must have been 2:30 p.m. Now I'm going to leave the graph on so that I can refer to it. B is asking us how long she rested for. Now, you have a flat line to represent no movement. So we've not moved further away from home. We've not started to travel back. We are just stationary as time ticks on. So flat lines are always stops or rests in these types of stories. So we stopped at 4 and we got moving again at 5. So we stopped for 1 hour. So B, you would write down 1 hour. For C, what time did she start to walk home? Well, we saw that when we were looking at our hour. That's 5 p.m. For D, we need to work out the total time that Suha was away from home. So she left home at 2:30 and she arrived back at 7. So if we add on 30 minutes, that's going to get us to 3 o'clock. And then to get from 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock, we have to add on 4 hours. So in total, we've got 4.5 hours. Okay, so in this question, we have got 12 paving stones, and they are going to be used in part A to make a patio that is a rectangle. There's various ones that you could do. Here is just an example of one. So I'm going to do a 2 by 6. And they're not perfect, but that's good enough to get the mark. You could have done a 1 by 12, or you could have done a 3 by 4. All would be correct. Part B is asking us to work out the perimeter of the pond. Now, we've been given the perimeter on this outside edge. So what that helps us see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So each edge of the square is counting as 1 meter. So we've got 1, 2, 3 here. So we're going to have an edge of 3 and we're going to have an edge of 2. So the perimeter is going to be 3 plus 2 plus 3 plus 2, which is 10 meters in total. And then the second part of this was to work out the area of the path. Now, again, because this counts as 1, and obviously this counts as 1, 1 square has an area of 1. So I don't have to do anything more than add these squares. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So for part 2, the answer is 14 meters squared. Now notice on this part of the question, and I will go down to really drum it home, there are no units. If there aren't units on the dotted line, you really will have to put them in or you're going to lose a mark. So do watch for that. Okay, so we are being told that a machine makes 36 trophies every hour. That machine is going to make trophies for 8.5 hours each day on 5 days of the week. And then all these trophies are going to get packed into boxes. Well, before we can worry about how many boxes are needed, we're going to need to see how many trophies the machine makes. So we're going to do 36 times that by the total number of hours. And that's what we get in 1 day. Take that and times it through by the 5 days that it's going to be working. And we get 1,530 for the week. And that is our total number of trophies. Now we need to know how many boxes are needed for all these trophies. And a box will hold 8. So we're going to take our total number, divide it through by 8, and we get 191.25 on the calculator. We are going to need 192 boxes. 191 is not enough to fit everything in. Okay, question 18 is a probability question. So we've got some information about the counter in the table. We're being told that the probability that the spinner will land on 2 is the same as the probability that it will land on 4. So I know that these missing numbers here and here are equal in size, probability adds to 1. And I would use this fact to help me solve it. So all of the probabilities would add to 1. If I take away the probabilities I know, which is 0.3, that's the 0.2 and the 0.1 added together, that will give me 0.7. So that 0.7 needs to be shared equally. So I'm going to divide by 2 to give 0.35. And that is the probability of it landing on 2 and on 4. So we've answered the question. Now Shunya is going to spin the spinner 200 times, and we need to work out an estimate for the number of times the spinner will land on 3. Now the probability that it lands on 3 is 0.1. So it's going to be 0.1 of the 200 times of, means times in maths. So we create this, and our calculator tells us that's 20. Okay, so a crossover question on exchange rates. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know that I really love a box and label when we've got a fact in the question. It just gives me structure and makes it easy to solve. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up those boxes and labels. Now, we're being told that in 2010, Eric changed £600 into rupees. So into my pounds column, I will be putting my 600, and I'm putting it into this grid because this is the information on the year 2010. And I could label that if I wanted to. How does this work? We just multiply across the diagonal. So we're going to be doing 600 times 67.1. And then we would divide by the number in the corner. Now, dividing by 1 isn't going to make a massive difference here, so you might not even want to show that. Put that in your calculator and you get this. Now, we want to work out how many pounds he'd have to change in 2012 to get the same number of rupees. The same number means that in our rupees column, we're going to put our previous answer. Now, remember, we multiply across the diagonal and we divide through. We can see that the multiplying is multiplying to 1. Don't really need to show that. So we will just finish it off by doing the division. So our answer is 488. Okay, a crossover question. We've been given a right angle triangle where we have 2 of the edges and we need to find the third. We've got to work out BC to 3 significant figures. Now, this is Pythagoras. Pythagoras is on the formula sheet. So you've got that information to help you, and you can just go to your formula sheet, find the formula, and then you can set this all up on your page. Now, there's a really nice way of doing this. If you go to the right angle and put little arrowheads on it, it points to 2 of the edges, points to these 2 edges. Those edges are your A and your B. I love colour in maths. It can make such a difference. So I know that we've got 9 squared plus 6 squared, and I could put that in any order, and that equals the length I haven't highlighted, which is the length that we want to work out. So when I put that in the calculator, I get 117. You could, if you wanted to, call that BC, which is what they're asking about. You could label it X, you could keep it as C. It really does not matter. What I do need to do is get the length, however I choose to label it on its own, and at the moment it's got that power 2. So we're just going to pick that power 2 up, move it to the other side so that my edge is completely on its own. When it lands as its opposite. We pop that into our calculator, write down a decent amount. I always do 4 decimal places, or I generally do as a rule, so that the examiner can see that was what was on my calculator display. Now, 3 sig figs means I'm just going to count in from the start. 1, 2, 3. That means I cut it here, box off that one. Is it 5 or more? No. So I keep the answer as 10.8. 8 centimetres. Okay, a crossover scatter graph question. What type of correlation does it show? Well, this is a nice, simple question for 1 mark. The points are all going in a downward direction, which means it's negative. The second part is telling us that the time a car takes to go from 0 to 60 is 11 seconds, and we've got to estimate the maximum speed of this car. So 11 seconds is here. What we're going to be doing is putting on a line of best fit. That will get us the first mark out of the 2 that we've been allocated to this question. And what you want to do is pop a straight line on that kind of hugs as closely to the line all of these points. So everybody's line will be slightly different, and they do allow a little range in the answers to allow for that. Now, all I'm going to do is go up at the 11, come across, and I'm coming out at exactly 120. So 120 goes on the dotted line. Any answer, I'll put it here, between 117 to 123 would have gained the marks. If you only write the answer, there's nothing here to show how you got it. You will only get 1 mark. So remember to use your marks to help you put enough down in your answers. Okay, another crossover, very wordy. So with these types of questions, we just want to read it through carefully. And in most cases, we can do it just step by step. Now, as you read through this and you're picking up all that information about your cakes and your sausage rolls, you get to this point where it says Ali wants to buy more than 60 cakes. And it's really important that we clock that more than 60 cakes, more than 60 sausage rolls. So when we start doing the maths, we don't kind of mess up. He also wants to buy exactly the same number. So it's got to be more than 60 and exactly the same number. So I'm going to go back up to the cakes information. Cakes are sold in boxes. So I'm going to draw a box, and there are 12 in each box. And each box costs £2.50. Now, if I was to times my boxes up by 5, that would get me 60, which is no good because it must be more, remember. If I times through by 6, it will get me 72. So what I want to do now is look at my sausage rolls, okay, which are sold in packs of 8 at £1.20. So I've got that key information kind of in a picture. It's easy to process when it's looking like that rather than sentences. I know it's got to be the same. So can I times my 8 by anything to equal 72? And I can check that in my calculator, or if I know my 8 times table, I will know that it is times by 9. So now all I've got to do is work out the cost. The least amount of money that Ali will have to pay is the cost of 6 packs of cakes. So I'm going to times my £2.50 by 6, which gets me 15. My £1.20 by 9, which gets me £10.80. And to finish off, we just add those 2 totals together. Okay, another crossover. We've been given the nth term of the sequence as n squared plus 4. Alex says the nth term of the sequence is always a prime number when n is an odd number. So really clock that. N is going to be odd. Alex is wrong, so that's a fact. And we've got to give an example to show that. Now, possibly the best way to approach this so that you're not jumping around all over the place is to just take a very systematic approach. So let's do the first odd number and see what we get. That is prime, so that is not an example. It's not going to help us. And we're just going to keep going like this. We've got the calculator. We can just throw it in. That one's prime. Now, when we get to this one, you might not know whether that is prime or not. And you can use your calculator, divide through by a few numbers to see whether or not you are getting a whole number out. It is a prime number. And when we put 9 squared in, we definitely find our result that proves he is wrong, because 85 has to be in the 5 times table. Okay, so a crossover question here. It's simultaneous equations. Whenever we are doing simultaneous equations, I would encourage you to make sure that the first terms, which generally x, but they don't have to be, make sure they're the same. And they are. They are both a single x. So we've got one x in each case. When they're the same, we can go straight into taking away each of the terms. So x take away x, we have no x's left. If I've got 2y and I take away a negative y, and we have to be so careful here. If I've got a takeaway and a negative number, those two negatives are going to be creating, creating a positive. So I end up with 3y equaling, and then I've got 3 minus 6, which will give me minus 3. Divide through by the 3 because I want to get y on its own so that I know what it is equal to, and y is equal to -1. And remember, you've got a calculator. It's a calculator paper. So if you need to be using your calculator at any stage, please do. Now we're going to substitute this value into one of these equations. It really doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm going to choose the bottom one. So we've got x minus y equaling 6. I've got x minus -1. Y is -1. These two negatives are going to create a positive. X will need to be 5 in order for that to be true. And you would just pop those results on your dotted line. Okay, so we've got a crossover question. It's got fraction and a ratio kind of screaming out of the question, hasn't it? So we've got Colin, Dave, and Emma sharing some money. We don't know how much money that is. We could put a question mark for reminders. We don't know that. Colin gets 3/10, which means that Emma and Dave must get the other fraction. They must get 7/10. So Emma and Dave together must get that. They share whatever this sum of money is in the ratio of 3:2. So I'm going to get that set up and coded straight away because I know that I'm going to need that. Because this is a share question, I know that we're talking about some money, don't know how much, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a total column. If they had 3 and 2, they'd have a total of 5 between them. All right, but we know that they actually have 7/10. So I need to know what goes here to create the 7/10. And the way I'm going to do that is look at what multiplies. So 5 times something will give me 7/10. To work that out, I would do 7/10 divided by the 5 in my calculator. And the calculator tells me to times by 0.14. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. If I look at the question, I do really only need to work out Dave's share. So that would be 2 times 0.14, which is 0.28. You could write it as a fraction. So they will get 0.28 or 7/25 of the money.